Mark Woodhouse. I'm a director at Proaxium Cyber. With me today is Cameron Fairbairn, our Chief Technology Officer. Thanks for joining us, Cam.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Good as gold. Today, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and particularly how it relates to the mining and exploration industry. There's a lot of geopolitical tension in the world at the moment. There's a lot of risks and events that are occurring. So we're going to spend a little time talking about what some of those threats are, particularly some of the external threats, and more importantly, how people in the call today can protect their businesses from some of these threats. Very quickly, I might just touch on a little bit about us. So Proaxium, we're a Brisbane-based cybersecurity company. We deliver security solutions for organizations of all sizes. Our main focus is on mid-tier organizations. We specialize in the Microsoft technology stack, which would include technology such as Microsoft Sentinel and Defender XDR, alongside the global standards like ISO 27001 and the NIST cybersecurity framework. We're on a mission to help organizations to protect themselves from compromise, manage risk, securing your environment, and achieve compliance with those frameworks that I mentioned. We work very closely with a number of organizations, both public and private sector, to help achieve compliance and security inside the organization. Now, let's not muck around, Cam. From a cybersecurity perspective, what are some of the key threats these days for the Australian mining and exploration industry?
Yeah, no problem. I've got a slide to cover this. So there's an increasing pressure on mining industry companies to improve their cybersecurity posture because the sector is increasingly vulnerable to a range of external threats due to the high value of the intellectual property that those companies possess and their reliance on global supply chains. The main threats are ransomware. Most people know what ransomware is, but for the sake of completeness, we'll cover that. This is where a hacker will lock down your environment, usually using a cryptographic means, and take your business offline. And in places, remote mining situations, that kind of thing, this can have an especially dire impact on business operations. So this is a particularly insidious form of attack against mining and exploration companies. And it's increasing in sophistication and frequency based on the evidence we have today in terms of cybersecurity statistics. The second one we want to talk about is supply chain attacks. This is where an attacker will compromise a third-party provider. So this will be someone like a vendor or someone who's doing some type of work for you, that they have access to some of your systems or some of your data, maybe access to your network. Trusted partners, equipment manufacturers, IT providers, these are the types of organizations that can make up a supply chain attack. And we've had several high-profile examples of supply chain attacks against mining industry companies over the last calendar year, and they are too increasing in sophistication and frequency. The third category is espionage and intellectual property theft. So this is increasing as an attack type in the industry because nation-state actors are increasingly getting involved in an environment internationally where there is a new competitive market for various resource types, and there is sufficient motivation from nation-state actors or competitors to steal data from your organization. So losing this type of information, the financial impact can be particularly severe, and it's often an attack type that goes undetected. So this is a really important attack type to make sure that we have defenses for. The fourth type is phishing attacks. This is a well-known attack type, but we're now in a situation where artificial intelligence, and in particular large language models, are effectively increasing the sophistication of this attack type to the point where it's quite difficult even for seasoned security veterans to determine the difference or discern the difference between a regular email and a phishing email. So security awareness training is really important in terms of combating this attack type. And the fifth type of attack is industrial control system attacks. Most organizations operating in the mining or exploration sectors have fairly extensive industrial control systems made up of SCADA, process networks, OT networks. These are networks and systems that are particularly vulnerable to cyber attacks, and a lot of them are not as well defended as they need to be. And this can often be a point of particular vulnerability for organizations operating in this sector. So those are the five main areas that we're seeing that organizations in this sector should look out for.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? I mean, being such a key part of the Australian economy, I think it's around about 12% of GDP, around 50% of the export market. You would have varying types of organizations that would be targeting the industry to, try and either disrupt trade to, or to even, deal at a sort of a, country, a state level.
Yeah, nation state attacks are really increasing. And I think in particular, there is a new relationship between non-nation state actors that are within a nation state and their nation state sponsors. So this dotted line relationship between ransomware crews and their nation states is increasing, particularly in countries like China and Russia, where there are current geopolitical tensions with Western nation states. So there's definitely a significant uptick in state-sponsored threat action in the cybersecurity landscape.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we had touched on the fact that at Paraxian we do work with these frameworks, but could you go into a little more detail, just explain what some of the key cybersecurity frameworks are that organizations might look to use as a reference, and why, what some of the differences are between them, and why they're valuable to have?
The primary framework that we talk to customers about is the ASD Essential 8. So this is a set of controls that have been designed by the Australian Signals Directorate to create an effective and simple response for Australian organisations to implement 8 controls that the Australian government defines as being the most effective controls that those organisations can implement to improve their security posture. You want to think of it like a security to-do list. And if you're doing these 8 things, they should cover your most basic IT security needs. They cover things like patching, which is an extremely important way to respond to vulnerabilities in software. Keeping up with patching is a good way to keep ahead of vulnerabilities. It includes multi-factor authentication, which is a fantastic way to ensure that stolen credentials don't mean that an attack is a certainty, and backing up your data and ensuring that those backups work, so that if a threat actor does successfully attack your environment and destroy some of your data or disrupt your services, that you can start again by restoring all of your data from a backup. So that's a great place to start. The ISO 27001 framework, as a step up from the ASD Essential 8, is a way to really control cybersecurity from an all-of-organization perspective. So with ISO 27001, you're really integrating all facets of your organization, including your executive leadership team, business units, and your IT team. And you're really doing it in a risk-oriented way. If you're just really implementing the ASD Essential 8, you're doing it in a very prescriptive format, and you're not really responding to specific risks to your organization. You're just implementing those 8 controls, and you're doing it in a way that's very prescriptive from the control set. Whereas if you're implementing something like ISO 27001, it allows you to implement your controls from a much wider control set and select those controls and the scope for which those controls are implemented based on the risk profile of your specific organization, which was why it's a very powerful but slightly more complex way to approach your cybersecurity posture in an organization. The third way that we come across quite frequently is the NIST cybersecurity framework. This is a US-based framework, and it's based on mostly US security concerns, but it's a globally recognized framework. today, and it really helps you focus on identifying, protecting, detecting, responding to, and recovering from cybersecurity threats. It's highly flexible and adaptable, so it really is much less prescriptive than ISO 27001 or the ASD Essential 8. And it might be a little bit more of an uplift in terms of how you approach it from a managerial perspective, but it offers the maximum amount of flexibility. So those are the three frameworks that we see mostly and that we recommend to customers depending on their specific requirements.
Yeah, and each of those frameworks helps with protection, detection, and response strategies, which are critical in preventing the types of attacks that we've talked about. They also help to lower the cost of doing business and improve the approval times on things by streamlining. Reducing operational downtime would be a key aspect, and that can be particularly valuable in joint venture and due diligence situations where you've got evidence that you're compliant with a framework that's going to lead to improved security posture and reduce risk of breach.
That's right. Yeah. So ISO 27001 in particular is a globally recognized standard for attestation of your cybersecurity capabilities and your cybersecurity posture. So having ISO 27001 compliance and being able to attest that you've had a complete external audit of ISO 27001 is a fantastic way to prove to organizations to which you might become a part of their supply chain. And most mining companies will actually end up being part of someone's supply chain or another corporation's, probably a larger corporation's supply chain. You can demonstrate your compliance using ISO 27001 as a framework. So it's a valuable investment for an organization to make that makes up, that comprises supply chains for other organizations.
Yeah, okay. So what would you recommend now for organizations to do to improve their cybersecurity?
Well, I've got a slide for that too. So yeah, next steps in terms of how to approach the problem of cybersecurity in your organization would be to look internally, talk to your IT team, or if you're working with a managed service provider, talk to them, ask them where your company sits in relation to the ASD Essential 8 controls. Most IT providers will have a working knowledge of what the ASD Essential 8 are. Ask them how you might fit in with the ISO 27001 and what that approach should be, or if maybe the NIST cybersecurity framework would be a better fit for your organization, and identify the gaps and begin working to fill those gaps. Even implementing a few basic controls and selecting just some of the controls from the ASD Essential 8, like your multi-factor authentication, regular backups and patching systems can make a huge difference and make it very difficult for a threat actor to get around in your environment and actually cause an impact to your business operations. And of course, Praxium Cyber offers a plethora of cybersecurity professional services and managed services. We're here to help. A lot of our professional services offerings are centered around compliance framework alignment. So we'd be more than happy to conduct an assessment of your organization and determine which of these frameworks would be most appropriate given your current cybersecurity posture, and help you out the roadmap to decide which steps are next best for your organization. So we'd be happy to get involved.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for your time, Cam. Thanks for your time, everybody listening. And yeah, we look forward to talking with you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.